What's up, fellas? In the second video of the day, we're going to be talking about PJ Tucker and the Houston Rockets. Earlier today, we talked about LaMarcus Aldridge, the San Antonio Spurs, the fact that he has played his last game with the Spurs, and in this video, doing a very similar thing, but this time with PJ Tucker. We're talking about where he could possibly end up. We're talking about the possibility of a buyout. We're talking about just the situation as a whole with Houston and with PJ Tucker as well, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel, so it's a great place for consistent NBA content, the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. If you're new here, what's up? My name is Tucker. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well if you're enjoying them, and you can check me out at various socials in a Linktree link down in the description below. With those things said, let's go ahead and talk about PJ Tucker and the Houston Rockets. So again, it's a similar situation to LaMarcus Aldridge, to Blake Griffin at the time before he got bought out, to Andre Drummond, who's currently still waiting on a resolution as well. This is becoming more common, and I think it's a good thing, by the way, that this is a thing, that teams can just be like, you know what? Things are clearly not working here. You're going to go off to the side. You're going to do your own thing. You're going to, kind of vibe, get yourself healthy. We're going to find a trade partner, or we're going to buy you out. I think that's a good solution because specifically here with PJ Tucker, he's been frustrated basically since the start of the season with how the James Harden thing developed, with the fact that he still hasn't been moved, with just kind of a miserable season there in Houston, and I think it's been kind of reflected at times in his play. But PJ Tucker's a guy that I think is going to have value, and I would honestly argue that it's going to be way, way easier and way more likely that someone trades for PJ Tucker than it would have been for LaMarcus Aldridge, just simply because of the difference in salaries between these two players. So my first point here is I don't know why Houston hasn't moved him before now. I don't know if they just haven't been asking. I don't know if they've just been waiting on the right price. But from the moment that James Harden, said that he wanted out and then ultimately got traded, PJ Tucker should have been someone that was being shopped around by Houston. So I'm a little bit confused as to why he's even still here in the first place, but there's going to be a ton of interested teams. The typical names are going to come up: Miami, Brooklyn, the Lakers, the Sixers, of course, with the Daryl Morey connection. And it's going to be easier for some teams like the Sixers and Heat than it would be for others to trade for him, like the Nets and the Lakers. But ultimately, this is something that I would 100% expect to be a trade. I can guarantee you PJ Tucker is going to be traded before the trade deadline. Yes, he's in his mid-30s. Yes, he hasn't had a great season, but he's someone that provides value on and off the court, is a significant locker room presence, provides toughness, and for me personally, I would love to have him in Brooklyn, by the way. And I think there's multiple scenarios in which you can pretty easily find a trade here. You can go to Boston in the trade exception. You can go to the Nets for any random contract that maybe Landry Shamet gets involved there. The Lakers could probably cobble something together. Miami to Philadelphia, all those teams. Any contender is going to be calling around and asking for PJ Tucker. And I think ultimately Houston is just going to have to decide what trade package that they like the best here. And I really don't think that a buyout is all that likely, and I don't really understand why he hasn't been moved. And I also think that it's possible that he gets moved as a part of a trade that isn't just involving him. An interesting one here to take a look at would be to Boston, as I mentioned. Him and Eric Gordon going to Boston, going into the trade exception, in exchange for Romeo Langford, Carson Edwards, and a lighter protected first. Now, that seems like a significant amount of value, considering PJ Tucker doesn't have, he has some, but not anything crazy. And then Eric Gordon is signed long-term for the next couple of years. But Eric Gordon's exactly the kind of player this Boston roster needs, in my opinion. A bit more of a perimeter creator, someone that can shoot, someone that can work on or off the ball. If Kemba's having an off night, Eric Gordon can create offense for you. And then PJ Tucker provides them that toughness as well that you're looking for out of this group. And I think that would really, really improve their roster. It doesn't necessarily address the issues they have at the 5 spot, although Robert Williams has been playing pretty well in that spot at times. It doesn't necessarily address that issue, but they have other assets that they can use to address that issue if they'd like to. But ultimately, I think that would be a good fit if Boston is looking at this season as something where they could potentially push for the conference finals this year. But overall, with the PJ Tucker thing, I think that this is a guy that he deserves to be traded. Like, he deserves to go somewhere else. He's someone that's worked incredibly hard throughout his career and doesn't need to be suffering away anymore in Houston. And the Rockets in general are going to be taking calls on pretty much everybody in the roster not named Christian Wood, in my opinion. So I'd absolutely expect PJ Tucker to be a part of that. If you want John Wall, call and ask. If you want Eric Gordon, call and ask. Same thing with PJ Tucker. It's a situation in Houston where it's as close to a fire sale as we have anywhere in the league. They can't win any games. Nobody's happy. The Harden thing just completely submarine their entire season. And hopefully, their front office wakes up and decides to make some moves, because unless they're just waiting for the perfect deal or waiting for the pressure of the trade deadline for certain teams to increase their offer, I'm confused as to why PJ Tucker has not been moved to this point. But a couple of overall points here about this kind of I don't want to call it like a new thing, but this strategy that's being employed lately by teams where they basically just come to an agreement with the player that they're not going to play. They're just going to sit to the side and then we'll figure out a trade or a buyout situation. I do think that's a positive thing because I think there's too many times where it's unclear, at least publicly, whether or not a player is going to be traded. And this basically guarantees a resolution. It kind of puts that at ease for a player. Just go ahead and start getting your affairs in order, go ahead and start getting healthy, whatever you need to do, because you're not going to be a member of the organization past the trade deadline, whether it be via buyout, whether it be, via trade, it's going to happen. I want to say this is the fourth player, unless I'm miscounting here. We have Drummond, we have Blake, we have PJ Tucker, and we have LaMarcus Aldridge as well. And I think all of those things, all those situations are ultimately going to end up being a positive. So like Blake is in a better situation in Brooklyn now than he was in Detroit. That's why he took such an aggressive buyout, left so much money on the table, because he wanted to leave Detroit that badly. Andre Drummond, wherever he ends up going, will be a better situation for him than Cleveland, and Cleveland will then be able to kind of prioritize the development of their younger bigs in a way that doesn't upset Drummond because he won't be on the roster anymore. Aldridge and the Spurs has had at times a bit of a tenuous relationship, and I think that's all kind of come to a head as well as they're trying to evaluate what direction they want to go in with their franchise. They want to go younger. They want to continue to try and compete for like a top 6 seed in the West. And then with Houston, there's no reason for PJ Tucker to continue to go out there and take charges and do anything of significant value for Houston because, he needs to be on a different team. He needs to be helping a team contend, not helping a team try and win their first game in their last 20 games or whatever the streak is at this point. So for Houston, it makes sense. For PJ Tucker, it makes sense. For all these players that are going through this whole, we'll just put you to the side and we'll trade you or buy you out later thing, I think it works. It doesn't necessarily plummet their trade value either because that the buyout thing is an option. So you can kind of use that as leverage against another team where you can be like, okay, yeah, if you guys don't want to make a trade, that's fine. We'll buy him out. But then there's no guarantee that you're going to end up signing that particular player. So there's always going to be a resolution to this. And I think ultimately that's a positive thing, especially in a season like this where, as crazy as everything is, it's very helpful to be able to have a real conversation with a player and be like, hey, it's probably not going to work out. You're probably going to go somewhere else. Here's why. Here's what we're going to do for you. Trade or buyout, that's what's going to end up happening. So ultimately, I, again, would 100% guarantee PJ Tucker will be traded to likely a contender. I can't really anticipate what kind of value you're going to get back because it's really difficult to tell. You're going to get something back if you're Houston. It's not going to be anything crazy, but you will get something. You might get a pick. You might get a couple of seconds. You might get a player that's kind of interesting. But at least you'll get value. PJ Tucker can move on. He can help a contender. That contender could be better this year, and Houston can add to some assets they have here moving forward. And maybe they package it together with Oladipo or with Eric Gordon in a bigger move as well. I think that's also a possibility. But yeah, that is going to be the end of the second video of the day, and I thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel. As I said, you can leave a like rating. You can check me out at various socials and a Linktree link in the description below. And yeah, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.